Thank you very much once again in this segment to have us here. We just want to demystify some of the major mental illnesses that we hear about, that we talk about, that we hear that people have, and we just want to dig a little bit deeper and describe some of the symptoms of these mental illnesses, so that in case you know somebody who could be struggling with these symptoms, or maybe even yourself, you are struggling with some of these symptoms, then you can now take the initiative to seek further professional help, so that you are professionally diagnosed, then you can get the help that you need. So I'll invite Sylvia to just talk to us a little bit about one of the most common psychological issue that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, called stress. And I know stress is part of our normal daily lives, but what is stress, and what are some of the symptoms, and what are some of the common, the different types of stressors stress that is there, that we need probably to understand a little bit deeper. Welcome, Sylvia.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Now, stress is something that we talk about all the time. When people say, I am stressed, I feel stressed, I'm stressed out. Now, what we could basically say stress is the change that we experience that causes physical, emotional, or psychological strain or tension. So, many times we encounter a challenge, we encounter a situation, something has changed, and when that thing causes strain or tension in you, maybe physically, emotionally, or psychologically, then we can talk about you having stress. Stress is your body's response to anything that requires your attention. That is what your body is doing. That change has occurred. Something has happened that needs your attention, that needs you to take care of. It's the way your body responds, so that it comes to your mind that you need to take care of this thing. So that's basically why stress happens. Many times we talk about stress as something negative, but there is positive stress. And positive stress will help you do several things in this life. Without positive stress, again, I believe life would be boring, and we would not be motivated to do so many things that we do. There will be no growth in life if stress were not there, for that matter, especially if it is positive stress. So I'll talk about the different types of stress that we encounter on a daily basis. I want to start with the good one, the positive stress. We call it eustress. Eustress is the positive or the good stress. This is the kind of stress that keeps you energized. The kind of stress that makes you sit down and work hard so that you're able to get that promotion that you wanted. The kind of stress that you have and makes you sit down and read so that you're able to pass that examination. The kind of stress that helps you prepare very well for a job interview. That kind of stress that you encounter when you are having your first day at work. So you want to go and impress these people and make them believe that they didn't make a mistake for hiring you. Yeah. So looking at that, if that kind of stress is not there, that eustress, and people, you can imagine, people with low levels of eustress are people who are not motivated to do anything. If this person is a student, this is the person who just sleep and not want to read so that they pass the examination. Like, to them, an exam is not a big deal, you know. They go to an examination and prepare, and they write their papers and they fail. Not because they are not capable of passing, but they didn't have that pressure that is coming from this positive stress. Then we have acute stress. Acute stress is rapid onset of stress that doesn't last for a long time. It comes maybe because you have faced a stressful situation. So it comes and then it will last a short period of time and it will go. Traffic jam, for example. You get into a traffic jam.
Sorry. So unfortunately...
Yes, so as I was saying earlier, acute stress is rapid onset of stress that doesn't last a long time. An example is traffic jam. You get into a traffic jam, you'll be stressed because you're not going home. Like right now, there is curfew at 8 o'clock and you are late and you're in that traffic jam. Of course, it will cause you some stress. And after you get out of that traffic jam or something happens and the way becomes clear, your body comes back to normal and you're done with that stress. So the rapid onset of stress that doesn't last for a long time is acute stress. But again, there is acute stress that we would call episodic acute stress. I'm imagining a situation where, okay, traffic jam is acute stress. And then if you are living in a place where you have to deal with traffic jam every day,
Oh boy.
and this is taking long hours every day, then I believe it will not be something that is just passing. You may think it is passing, but it will cause something in you. Because when your heart begins to pound and you begin to worry, if this is done over and over and over, it causes the body to be in what we call a flight mode. And when the body is in the flight mode, it can react in a very bad way.
Can I cut you in right there with episodic acute stress?
Yes.
I can identify with that issue of the traffic jam. There's a time where I was living in a place where they were building the road, and there was this particular junction that was so close to my house. It was like maybe 5 minutes to my house. From that junction to my house, maybe not even 5 minutes. About 3-4 minutes, I would be in my house. And I would be picking my children from school. So if my children delay even with 5 minutes, I'm going to get stuck in that traffic. And I would be stuck in that traffic for even 30-40 minutes. With my house 5 minutes away, and I had no other way to get out. I had no other route to follow. So I would see people turning and I would be so stressed, the matatus and the honking, and that was so stressful. And I believe that really affected me biologically. The flight mode you're talking about, what happens during stress, there's a hormone called cortisol that is produced in your body. Yeah. So it is a very corrosive hormone. So it can lead to so many illnesses like high blood pressure, I would panic when my children are late. I would panic and I would be yelling at them, asking them, what are you still doing? We're going to get stuck in traffic. So I can totally identify with that episodic acute. And you see, this went on for about a year. Because that's the time it took for them to finish constructing that particular junction. It was really, really stressful. So I can identify with that episodic acute stress.
Exactly. And you see, at that point in time, your children are even wondering why you are shouting, why you are so serious on this matter. Maybe they were late only for 2 minutes. Yeah. They are wondering 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And they look at you as someone who is overreacting.
Absolutely.
But at that point in time, there is something that has happened in you. And this is leading you either towards some physical problems or even mental issues.
Absolutely.
So episodic acute stress, even if it is stress that is passing within a short time, but if it keeps happening to you, it will put your body into flight mode. That hormone that she has talked about is very, very bad for your body, and it even changes the way your brain works. And so it can put you in a situation where you develop a mental illness even without knowing, or even physical illness. And then we have chronic stress, never-ending stress, stress that looks like it's never ending. You're sleeping, you wake up, you are living in stress. Bad marriage, taking care of a sick person for years. There's an old lady in my village I know whose husband became bedridden and could not even take care of themselves. So she was basically taking care of this old man like a baby. It reached a point where I was talking to her and I asked her why she takes alcohol. And she told me, what I have gone through in life, I could have not sustained it if I didn't take alcohol. Then I said, what was it? And she told me the story of a husband who was sick for 30 years and was bedridden there for 30 good years. She told me, I was not a drunkard. Drink. That was chronic stress. So bad marriage, taking care of a sick person for a long time, an extremely taxing job, that you go every day, the job is so taxing, you do this for a long time, you get chronic stress, money problem that is never ending, and even traumatic childhood experiences. They don't go away. They walk with us in life, and sometimes they affect how we view things, how we live our life normally, how we interact with other people. So those are examples of chronic stress. So when stress becomes overwhelming, there's a high risk of someone developing mental health issues. And that's really why we are talking about stress, so that we know this one is chronic, this one is episodic, but even if it is episodic, if it keeps repeating itself, then I really need to see what I can do or how I can manage. So stress has physical symptoms, it has emotional symptoms or cognitive symptoms. Physical symptoms, there are headaches that just come from nowhere. The headaches just come from nowhere. Oh, I'm feeling headache. You're fatigued, an upset stomach. Sometimes you basically have a stomach that is upset all the time. You begin to wonder what's wrong with you. Lack of sleep, what we call insomnia. Low energy levels, and sometimes even chest pains. So those are physical symptoms that would arise as a result of the stress that you're going through. Emotional symptoms, you're moody, you feel overwhelmed, even when the work that you are doing is not so much. It's not even difficult.
You find yourself procrastinating.
Yeah, you procrastinate, you start doing it, you feel like you don't even have the energy to do it. You start avoiding people.
True.
Even when people call you, you don't want to pick those calls.
You see the phone ringing and you're like,
no, I don't want to deal.
Yeah.
And so you just let those phone calls go, and you feel lonely sometimes. And cognitive issues or cognitive symptoms of stress, you worry a lot. Find yourself worrying a lot. Your thoughts begin to race, and sometimes you make poor judgment. You're so overwhelmed that sometimes you make very poor judgment. And when you want to do something, you are not able to focus. You really try to focus, but you can't really focus, and you don't really know why you're not focusing. But every time you're doing something that you really need to focus on, you sit down to do something, you're not able to focus. So all these things, if you're experiencing some of these things, then it is time to sit down and think about what is it that is causing all this. Because sometimes stress is, we're going through certain things and we don't really know that those things are the ones that are causing us all that we are feeling. So it's important to sit down and think about these things. Because when stress comes, there are only two ways that we can deal with it. The situation that is a stressor, we call that situation a stressor. Either we change that situation if you are able to change it, but if we are not able to change it, then we will change how we look at that situation.
Absolutely.
For example, you are not able to change what was happening at that road. It had to be built.
That road had to be
And you
built.
had to pass
I had
through
to
that
pass
road.
through that road.
Yeah.
I had to pick my children.
You had to
from
pick
school.
your children.
So those
So,
I couldn't change.
in that situation, you couldn't change that situation. So the only option you remained with was to look at that situation differently.
Yeah.
And that was the only option that you had,
Yeah.
to look at that situation differently. Yeah. So that is how those are the two ways that we deal with stressing situations or stressors. And moving forward from that, what we are talking about stress is that when this stress builds up and builds up, it leads to even other mental health issues. For example, we have anxiety disorders. Like when you start panicking and your heart starts to race because your children, for example, have been late for 5 minutes and you're going to be stuck, you are in this situation where you can get an anxiety attack or a panic attack any moment. So what are these anxiety disorders? They are persistent and excessive. They are characterized with persistent and excessive worry or fear. Sometimes that fear is a real threat that can be seen by everyone. Sometimes that fear or the threat is just perceived. Sometimes it's just in our minds. So the threat could be something that everyone can see, but sometimes it is just fear or threat that is perceived or is just in our minds. So our body reacts in anticipation of that threat. And that's why we get this racing heart. Because anytime you meet, you come into contact or you come face to face with a threatening situation, then your body tends to react to the racing heart. But you realize that even when the threat is just perceived, the heart will race.
The moment you think
about it, because the body has been put in such a situation where it perceives threat, even where threat is not there. So it is important for us to know this, because it is the mind that will drive our body to react the way it's reacting. And those thoughts that were discussed in the previous episodes or sessions, that what is it that is in your mind, or what are you putting in your mind. So if that thought comes and you give room to think about it, then it triggers all that we are talking